freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your round one recap for the FedEx St. Jude Championship, the first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs. Joining me to break it all down, Mark Immelman is here. Hello, Mark.
Hey, Rick, tell me why I didn't go with Ben on in one and done. Tell me, please help me.
Well, you know, it's funny because there's a lot of guys in good position. However, your guy's not in a great spot. My guy's not in the great spot. So, yeah, hopefully there's a lot of golf still left to be played.
Well, there is. Remember, no cut in Memphis. Glory, hallelujah.
Oh, boy. Speaking of Memphis, TPC Southwind, very, very soggy, very, very wet. In fact, we started about 2.5 hours late this morning because of the overnight rain and then the rain this morning. They did play preferred lies, but you could see it was a slop all day long.
Yeah, when you got golfers rolling up their trousers, and I'm talking about Tom Kim, then you know it's a bit mucky when you're walking around in that Bermuda rough. And speaking of, I mean, Bermuda rough dry is dangerous because it gets those flowers that come shooting out of there with no spin. But Bermuda rough wet is just, the stuff is like Brillo, and you can't get a club through there. The club hooks, you lose all sorts of momentum. The golf ball comes out dead with no spin. It's just so difficult. And so, as always is the case around here, you've got to drive it in the fairway. But with it being as moist as what it was, with lift clean in place, it almost placed an added value on putting the ball in play in the fairway off the tee.
Yeah, well, the top of the leaderboard is a bunch of names that have not necessarily been in a lot of contention as of late. We'll talk about kind of the top 5 guys here, and we can go to get to some of the notables. But the man atop the board, thanks to a 7 under 63 that was bogey-free, highlighted by a chip-in eagle on number 16, is the man, the myth, the legend, Jordan Spieth. I'm not sure, Mark, that his summer has gone exactly according to plan. You know, he misses the cut at the U.S. Open. He misses the cut at the Scottish Open. Expectations were always high at an Open Championship. He finished 23rd there, but Jordan Spieth has his nose out in front of this first playoff event.
And he looked kind of comfortable. He was sort of playing the Spieth game to me a little bit, where around the greens he was really sharp as always. I love the fact over short putts he's looking at the hole more often, because I've always believed that sort of it lines all of the parts of him up a bit more, because he's got that left hand low grip. So when he looks at the cup on the short stuff, it seems to iron out the path of the stroke, the shoulder line, the forearms, the whole thing. So, and he drove the ball, I thought, the bit that I saw, very nicely. And so the golf swing's there. You know, Jordan, when he gets a sniff of the lead, the word in the locker room on Jordan is he's one of those names that won't go away. When you see Jordan ascending up there, you know you're going to beat him, and he won't beat himself because the short game's so good. So it was a tremendous start around a demanding golf course. And I'm sure after having not played very much competitively whatsoever over the last little bits, I'm sure this has got him feeling really, really good tonight.
The chip-in certainly helps you around the green numbers, first there, but 9th in putting, 11th on approach. So a lot of good play for Jordan Spieth. If this ended right now, Jordan Spieth would be 3rd in the FedEx Cup standings. To go from 31st to 3rd, Mark. These quadrupled points are massive this week.
It's a big deal. The thing about Jordan is the 2 straight face clubs in the bag. If he drives it well, if he just drives the thing in play, he's gotten a whole lot longer of late. But if he drives the ball in play and if he putts decently, Jordan's going to be a thing. And he did both of those things well today, because, you know, the iron game is always pretty stout. That golf swing of his keeps the arms in front of him. There's not a lot of face rotation through the ball. So the iron game is kind of always there. It's the driver that can be the Achilles heel. Of course, the wedge game is majestic. So you get the driver and the putter working if you're Jordan, and you become a factor.
The 7 under par is the leading score for Jordan Spieth. One shot back is Tom Kim, 6 under 64. Only one blemish on the card. That came on the 7th hole at TPC Southwind, which was his 16th hole of the day. Mark, Tom Kim, I think the only question mark, because he's been playing a lot better, was in regards to the health, that ankle that gave him issues at the Open Championship. But so far, so good here in Memphis.
Isn't it crazy? I mean, here's a guy who didn't play last week in defense of his title because the foot wasn't good and the verdict was sort of out on him. You know, I'd planned to use him last week in one and done, and then he pulled out, and it was disappointing because he always plays well this time of the year. And he's very, very good on Bermuda greens. And once again, the way he hits it, he's accurate. This golf course, Sedgefield, all those kinds of tracks fit right up his alley. And look, 64 was spectacular. I was sort of surprised, I would say, because for someone who hasn't played that well, he looked comfortable. He sort of fell out of bed playing well, which was strange because oftentimes when the stakes are higher and the events are a big deal, that sort of thing can expose any flaws. But I wouldn't say it was flawless, but he looked pretty comfortable, and so it was a great start for someone who had been out with injury.
Spieth at 7. Tom Kim 6 deep, 2 at 5 under. Emiliano Grillo and Collin Morikawa. Will start with Morikawa here, Mark. Kind of another odd year. I think he's played better than the results would indicate. He made his lone bogey on the same hole that Tom Kim did, the 7th hole on the golf course. If you look at this statistically, it was a pretty Morikawa-esque day. Gained a stroke and a half on approach, and then when he gets that putter going in any form, he's at the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, he looked way more decisive to me when I watched him play on PGA Tour Live. Of late, I've said it time and time again on the show, there was a lot of chatter with JJ. They were sort of always in between clubs. When he hit a ball, it was decent, but didn't have the stamp of authority it used to with the iron game. And from what I saw from watching today, he looked convinced. He looked like he was applied. There was purpose to what he was doing. The decision-making was tight. It was good. I thought this was vintage Morikawa. I really did. And it sort of bodes well, certainly for a run coming down the stretch, because next week, Olympia Fields is a U.S. Open type place. And those statistics you reference, and you did so in the Tuesday show, those statistics fit really well on those sorts of golf courses. So right now he's in good shape, but looks like he's trending for a pretty good run here in these playoffs.
Yeah, certainly is. This would be a good time of the year to get hot. Emiliano Grillo, the other man, in at 5 under, another 65, and he did it with lots of birdies, 8 of them, most in the field as of right now. We've got a couple of guys still out on the golf course, but Grillo has figured out that flat stick mark since the Players Championship. He's been one of the best putters on the tour since then. He gained a little bit here on Thursday, but he was solid on approach, 7th in the field. He was 6th around the green. Talk about somebody who is kind of plugging leaks in his game and certainly reaping the benefits as of right now.
You know what? I'm going to get a bit ethereal on you here, Rick. Look, the ball striking has always been good. This guy is just a natural. The putter was always an issue, and I felt like it sort of flowed through the bag, and it flowed through the bag straight into his head, because he used to have a bad attitude. When Emiliano was out there and things weren't going his way, he was sort of whiny a little bit, and there was always a problem with something, and he never really looked like he was enjoying the game. And then I was on the call for his victory there at Colonial, and we talked a few times because he was in our window, and the one time he was just loosening up. And ordinarily in the warm-up, he'd never be chatty. But he'd hit a few shots, and he'd come talk about clubs and the family and his son. And so I said, look, what's the secret here? And he said, look, I've got the irons correct. The lies on my irons are good now. And then he said, and then, golf is just golf now. Having a son, I've got things in my priorities in order. And you can see that. He looks like he's having more fun on the golf course. And when you allow one of these sort of virtuoso ball strikers to go out there with no real concern for results, it's like you're playing the game just for the love of the game, kind of like what you did when you were a kid. That's almost that unwritten sort of recipe for these guys to thrive. And this has been one of those sorts of years. And I mean, I tell you what, it's been a good year with a win. This could turn incredible if he continues to play well through the season, because there's a pretty handsome bonus at the end of this whole thing.
Yeah, he already started the week in 21st. He was in good shape. Now really trying to solidify his spot into East Lake. If it ended right now, he'd be 9th. So we've got Jordan Spieth at 7, Tom Kim at 6 under par, Grillo and Morikawa at 5 under apiece, and a logjam of names at 4 under, including recent winner Lucas Glover. Xander Schauffele is in at 4 under, Tommy Fleetwood, and others. We are going to continue this conversation and hit on the big 3 and some other notables. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
And how about this?
Get ready for non-stop action that will have you saying,
You gotta be kidding.
"Oh my, Canada."
This could change things. What a play and what a finish.
That's some pretty good football, eh?
He's gone all the way to the house.
It's the Canadian Football League, Thursday on CBS Sports Network.
And we're back. The super group of numbers 1, 2, and 3 in the FedEx Cup standings all played together. It was a slow start for all of them. Jon Rahm never really recovered, though, Mark. He is 3 over 73 in a tie for 65th in a field of 70. He hit one OB off the tee on 16.
Mm-hmm.
He hit one into the water off the tee on 18. He had to take a drop out of a bush on 2. It was not a good driving day for Jon Rahm, and I never get to say that.
Yeah, he looked ragged. I mean, goodness gracious. And you're right about the driver. I mean, our dear friend, God bless him, Kyle Porter, speaks of Jon Rahm's ball striking, especially the driver, as if it's heavenly. And look, it is. He's long, he's accurate. He goes to that fade a bunch. But when that fade starts missing left, and the one he hit OB down 16, I mean, that's not just left. That is large and left. That thing he starts the cut left, but that thing's hooked as much as what it should have faded to get to the middle of the fairway. And that is going to throw the cat amongst the pigeons so quick, because then you set up for the next fade, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you're like, well, don't do that again. Then you hang the face too far open and you start the fade too far right. Then the next thing, you've got this army thing. You're like left, right. And playing from the rough this week is just going to be a long week then. And as things started going awry with Jon's ball striking, it looked like the attitude sort of went the same way a little bit, and he was glaring at cameras and to end the whole thing, to add insult to injury, he hits a weak wedge on the final green, his ninth, his 18th, and 3 putts. And I mean, he just looked like he was about to. He was volcanic as he walked off that green.
The final numbers are still coming in, but it will be the worst statistical driving day in terms of strokes gained off the tee for Jon Rahm his entire career. So that's where we were headed on this Thursday. Scottie Scheffler off to a very slow start. He was 2 over through his first 6 holes, thanks to a double bogey at 14, which was his 5th hole of the day. But Scottie got both of those shots back before he made the turn mark, and then 4 birdies, 1 bogey on his second 9. That is a 3 under 67 when the dust has settled.
He is just so mentally sharp.
Yep.
I mean, the start to his round, he had a decent drive down his first hole, the 10th, hit an okay second. Next hole, the par 3, hit a decent shot. Then he sort of goes along a little bit and then hits the ball in the middle of the water on 14, off a tee. It was sort of wiped. It was nasty looking. And I was like, that is so uncharacteristic for Scheffler. But he never really looked phased. And then he hit a great wedge and didn't convert, makes double. And you could see he was a little hot around the collar, but he wasn't down on himself. And he just sort of got back to work. Made the birdie on the par 5, 16, his 7th, and just got going. And then I think the birdie on the 18th, tough par 4, his 9th, that was sort of the catalyst really to the day, because that's where you could see that all this good mental and emotional work he'd put in to keep himself at 1 over, that's where he's like, all right, I think this golf swing's back. And he rattles off a few birdies in the next 4 holes or so. Unfortunate bogey on 7, but that's easy to do, but bounces right back with a birdie on his second last hole. So here's a guy, he makes 2 mistakes. He bounces back directly on the following hole on 1. And the first mistake, he bounces back 2 holes later with a birdie. So, I mean, this was typically Scottie Scheffler to me. You can look at the numbers, you can look at the ball striking and stuff, but he has this uncanny way of just keeping golf. And whether it's good or bad, he just hits the next shot with the very same merit. He gives everything his best. He has it on tape right now. He's under complete control mentally, and it's manifesting itself physically as far as I'm concerned.
A new putter in the bag for Scottie Scheffler through 1 round, a quarter of a stroke to the positive. That's 26th in the field, 3 under 67. Same score for the third man in that group, Rory McIlroy. Also a slow start, 1 over through his first 5. He birdies 15, eagles 16, and makes the turn in 2 under. He did spend 2 shots late in his round, Mark, 7 and 8. 2 of his final 3 holes of the day. He puts a square on the card, salvages 1 of them at number 9. But Rory McIlroy, kind of a similar story, did enough to keep himself in the mix.
Yes, a couple things. First off, I think the putter change for Rory was not as beneficial as the putter change for Scottie Scheffler, who went to that spider style that Rory was using. If it wasn't for the made putt, that 10, 12 footer on his final hole of the day for birdie for Rory, I think that putter might have been on a short leash. But, as you look at this, the way he drove the ball around a narrow driving course, look, it was receptive. But if the South stays like the South is right now, with all this rain around, I mean, Columbus, Georgia, it was dumping today. So Atlanta is wet right now. East Lake is long. It's going to play right up Rory's alley. He loves it over there. If he keeps driving the ball like he is, man, he's looking good right now because he didn't have his best stuff about him and still gets around that place in 3 under. So it was a really good day for Rory McIlroy, despite the 3 bogeys.
All right. Well, we've got some big names at the top of the board. We've got some big names at the bottom of the board. Josh is going to show us what the odds makers have to say about this event with 18 holes in the books. Oh, look at that. Jordan Spieth, the favorite, 5.5 to 1 to win the first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs. Scottie Scheffler not far behind, 7 to 1. Morikawa, who's only 2 shots off the lead, is 8 to 1. The book's not giving up on Rory. He's at 9 to 1, same as Tom Kim, and everybody else in double digits or longer, Mark. So shaping up to be a good one here down the final three rounds.
I don't know about you. I'd like your commentary. You're the expert, but plus 550. Isn't that a bit short for Jordan Spieth after the first round lead?
Yes, because we have also seen him do this a lot recently where he has that one ceiling round and he can cough it right back up tomorrow. That's a little tight for my liking.
Yeah, well, look, as I mentioned, I like the way he's rolling it. And he's going to give himself looks. They'll play ball in hand tomorrow. I'm keen to see how it pans out over the weekend. So if he hits in the fairway off the tee like he's been doing, he's going to get some looks. If he makes some putts, he'll be fine. But as I look down that list there, I mean, Scheffler was not really that good today, and he's right in the mix. Rory was not his best, and he's right in the mix. I think both of those. Tom Kim is an interesting one to me. I really do. And Xander plays well this time of the year too. So if I was sort of counting shekels, I'd be more inclined to put money down there than put some money, money on Spieth right now.
Yeah, I like my only concern for Tom Kim coming into this week was the health, and he looked seemingly fine here on Thursday. Easy for me to say. I like that number, but it is very terrifying to see what Scottie did today, what Rory did today, because that was about the worst they could have done. And I mean, Scottie is just relentless at this point.
Well, I've always said to you, and I've enjoyed the few times you and I have walked around golf courses together. And the thing about like Spieth, for argument's sake, I've always said that when Jordan signs the scorecard, it's the lowest number he could have shot.
Correct.
And when Rory signs the scorecard, more often than not, it's the highest number he could have shot.
Mm-hmm.
Where Rory today, yes, I know the 2 bogeys at the end were soft, but that was pretty well Rory making the most out of a day where he wasn't at his most sharp. He looked a little rusty, but he still looked good. And if those guys, McIlroy, Scheffler, all those guys can have their bad day and be just, within shouting distance of the lead, you better watch out.
Yeah, when they go out and have their good day, everybody else is in trouble. We'll see if those good days come tomorrow or if they come later in the week, because we'll be here after the final putt drops on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to take you home the rest of the way. Big thanks for now to producer Josh, does all the hard work behind the scenes. Mark Immelman, you can find him online at Mark_Immelman. You can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.